Good evening, everyone. Today we're diving deeper into the realm of real life horror. We'll be sharing more chilling tales based on true events. Before we begin, for our appreciation and encouragement of our hard work, please hit that like button and subscribe to support our channel. We're always on the lookout for new, terrifying stories. If you have a bone chilling experience to share, please reach out. Your story might be featured in a future episode. I wasn't the most social person in college. Poor grades, no frat, no girlfriend, and minimal involvement left me feeling a bit lost. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. Fast forward to my late 30s, and I found a wonderful partner who's always by my side. We share our lives with two adorable cats, Blue and Raz, and I'm planning to propose soon. Back in college, frat parties weren't really my scene. My friends Brian and Ian were in the same boat. We often spent weekends in Brian's dorm, but we always kept an eye out for off-campus parties. One Friday, Ian mentioned a girl he knew who was hosting a party nearby. While Brian and I were a bit skeptical, Ian insisted it would be a normal party. We convinced Chris, Brian's sober brother, to be our DD, and off we went. On the way, Ian started complaining about the girl he was texting, who hadn't responded in hours. It wasn't surprising, given his usual style. Ian was feeling conflicted. He admitted to having second thoughts about going to the party, which seemed like an overreaction since we were already halfway there. We weren't about to turn around and go home, so we encouraged him to suck it up and not let it ruin the night. A few minutes later, Ian revealed that Callista's profile had vanished from his phone. We broke the news to him that he'd been blocked, and she'd likely chosen to go to the party with someone else. He sulked for the rest of the drive. When we arrived at the party, it was immediately clear we'd made the right choice. The house was enormous, a stark contrast to the other homes on the block. Ian was hesitant to go in, needing a drink to distract himself. Bryson and I didn't mind, so we asked Chris to park further down the street so we could pregame outside. We downed a few beers and watched as people streamed into the house. It looked like a pretty wild party. Once Ian was sufficiently buzzed, the four of us headed towards the house. As soon as we stepped inside, something felt off. All the lights were on, creating a sterile atmosphere that was completely out of place for a college party. The guests were dressed in formal attire, more suited for a fancy dinner party than a rowdy gathering. We hadn't known much about the party beforehand, so we didn't look too out of place, but the clothing disparity was noticeable. The music was equally bizarre. Instead of the usual trap or hip-hop, they were playing some kind of ethereal, almost druggy instrumental music. It was a strange and unexpected soundtrack to the evening. The party was strange. My friends and I exchanged puzzled looks, trying to figure out what was going on. We questioned Ian, but he was just as clueless as we were. The four of us wandered around, the house filled with alcohol. I started noticing people glancing at me, then quickly averting their gaze. It was so obvious that I wondered if I had something stuck in my teeth. I figured it was my outfit, which made sense at the time. Despite the odd atmosphere, we were having fun. Chris, bored and sober, went to smoke in his car. A few minutes later, a group of girls approached us. We weren't used to that kind of attention, so we were a bit surprised when they started flirting, almost aggressively. They demanded a tequila tax, and we, not wanting to seem lame, obliged. From then on, the six of us stuck together, drinking, talking, and dancing. Things were going great with Tina until I noticed something odd. A short, solid green line, almost like a Sharpie mark, was on her neck. It was so subtle I probably wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't been so close. I hesitated to ask, fearing I might offend her, Maybe it was a birthmark or something, but the unnatural green hue was perplexing. Just as I was starting to wonder where the night would lead, Bryson and his date headed upstairs, followed by Ian and his partner. I was eager to push things forward with Tina, but nerves got the better of me. I excused myself to the bathroom, hoping to calm down. When I finally got inside, a tall, older man in a white shirt and linen pants emerged. As we bumped into each other, he just stared, sizing me up. And then I saw the same green line on his neck. It was an exact match to Tina's. Against my better judgment, I asked him, "What's your problem?" He smirked and shook his head, then asked, "Who invited you?" Not knowing how to answer, I blurted out, "Callista, the girl who stood up Ian." He chuckled and looked up as if he recognized the name. Then his smile vanished, and in a low voice he repeated, "Callista." He gestured around the party and asked, "Do you see Callista here?" I was speechless. I slammed the door in his face, confused and bewildered. What had just happened? I couldn't shake the image of the green mark on his neck. Part of me wished I had asked him more questions, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Leaving the bathroom, I walked past people who eyed me suspiciously. I didn't care. I just wanted to find my friends and leave. As I wandered the party, my mind was consumed by the green mark. I started examining people's necks, searching for the same mark. To my horror, I found 2 more people with identical green lines. It was eerie, unsettling. I continued my search, my eyes scanning the crowd for the mysterious man and the peculiar mark. Most people were unmarked, but I kept catching glimpses of the green lines on others. Panic started to set in, so I headed for the stairs to find my friends. Luckily, Bryson and Ian were walking down as I was going up. Desperate to convince my friends, I dragged them to an empty hallway. I outlined my theory about the strange marks, urging them to leave immediately. They dismissed me as drunk and jealous. I pressed them about their plans, realizing they were both meeting different girls upstairs. Refusing to give up, I insisted on showing them the proof. When Ian turned, I saw a horrifying red line on his neck. I shouted, finally capturing their attention. Examining Bryson, I found a similar mark. Ian dismissed it as makeup, but Bryson started to believe me. We rushed to leave, but Ian hesitated. Just then, a stranger walked past, his glance lingering on us. A green line was visible on his neck. Terrified, Bryson and I bolted, with Ian following. As we fled, their phones buzzed with frantic messages from the girls. We blocked their numbers, unsure of what had happened. To this day, I'm left with unanswered questions and wild theories. I'm grateful for the stranger's intervention, as the outcome could have been far worse. After a difficult breakup with my boyfriend of 2 years, Ben, I moved on by blocking him on everything. A few days later, strange noises started to keep me up at night. At first, I dismissed them as my mind playing tricks, but as they persisted, I realized they were likely coming from outside my window. While Ben was a kind and gentle person, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was behind the disturbances. However, I chose to ignore them, focusing instead on a major group project. After a long night of editing, I finally submitted the project. The next day, during our presentation, my heart sank as the video I'd edited began to play. It was clear that someone had tampered with it, leaving me feeling violated and confused. Instead of my project, a disturbing video was played in class. It showed someone wearing a scream mask, spewing hateful rhetoric about me, my professor, and the government. The content was so vile that I can't bear to repeat it. My professor, visibly shocked, let the video play longer than he should have. When he finally paused it, His face was pale. I was utterly mortified. Frozen in place, I couldn't cry or even breathe. I felt the intense scrutiny of the entire class. After what felt like an eternity, I broke down in tears and fled the lecture hall. A panic attack was imminent. I considered going home but knew I'd be expelled if I left. So I waited outside until class ended and pleaded with my professor, insisting I'd send the correct video. He confirmed that 2 videos had been submitted, the first being my project and the second, the disturbing one. Clearing this up with the university was a long and arduous process, but I eventually succeeded. I won't go into too much detail, but the humiliation I felt after the breakup was immense. It was clear my email had been hacked, which was a much bigger problem. I changed my password, thinking it was just a case of bad luck. However, things took a worse turn. A week later, I woke up to find myself logged out of Snapchat. This only happens when someone else logs in, meaning I'd been hacked there too. I dread to think what they found on my Snapchat. There was a lot of personal stuff I'm not comfortable discussing. I contacted the police and, surprisingly, Ben agreed to be questioned. The police confirmed that Ben wasn't involved in the hacking. He did, however, admit to posting my private information on an online forum after our breakup. He claimed not to have shared my passwords, but they were easy to guess, and I foolishly used the same one for everything. The police couldn't do much about the hacking. It was then that the full extent of the situation hit me. Someone had access to almost all my private information and could potentially blackmail me. I immediately changed my passwords, but I fear it might have been too late. Weeks passed without incident, and I assumed the harassment had stopped. However, I was wrong. One day, a random person added me on Snapchat. When I accepted their friend request, they began sending me private, compromising photos of me. I blocked them before they could escalate the situation, but the fear and helplessness were overwhelming. For the past week, I've been inundated with friend requests from random Snapchat profiles. I recognize the pattern and am terrified to accept them, fearing blackmail or extortion. The police are unable to help due to lack of evidence. This person knows my address and other personal details, and I worry they may escalate their actions if I continue to ignore them. Please, young women, be cautious about the photos you keep on your devices. I don't know if this ordeal will ever end. I'm a recent civil engineering graduate student at Purdue University. Things were going smoothly, classes were manageable. I'd made a few friends and found an affordable apartment. The landlord was a bit questionable, but I had a car and didn't mind the drive, even if the neighborhood was a little rough. Then, the unthinkable happened. I left my backpack unattended in a lecture hall, and it was stolen. Inside were my wallet, keys, and laptop. I had to cancel cards, report lost keys, and scramble for a new laptop. A few days later, I found a chilling note slipped under my door. I see you, no name, no signature, just a chilling message. The situation had escalated from mere inconvenience to something far more sinister. I realized instantly what had happened. Whoever had stolen my backpack had somehow accessed my laptop and figured out where I lived. That was terrifying enough, but then a worse thought occurred to me: they had my apartment keys. A shiver ran down my spine, and I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. I rushed into my apartment and slammed the door shut, locking the deadbolt. Over the next week, I received more handwritten notes. They were short and cryptic, containing phrases like "I know what you did" and "watch yourself." I was increasingly unnerved. I hadn't done anything wrong, but who knows what someone could have found on my laptop. I wasn't sure if going to the police would help, so I decided to wait it out, hoping the person would get bored. One night, As I was getting ready for bed, I noticed something strange. It was dark outside, and my blinds were partially closed, but I could have sworn I saw a flash of light, as if someone had taken a picture of me. I quickly pulled down the blinds, my heart pounding. There was no one there. The incidents continued. I started noticing small things around my apartment being moved. At first, I dismissed it as clumsiness, but then it became more pronounced. My shoes would be in the wrong place, my coat draped over a chair instead of hung up. It was a series of minor disturbances that I could rationalize, but then one day, I came home to find my bed sheets stripped off and my room completely ransacked. Drawers were pulled out, books scattered everywhere. It looked like someone had torn through the place. I called the police, of course, but they were unhelpful. With no forced entry and nothing stolen, there wasn't much they could do. I asked my landlord to change the locks, but he said it would take at least 2 days. I desperately pleaded with him to expedite the process, but he dismissed my concerns, claiming it wasn't urgent. I was dumbfounded. How could he possibly not understand the severity of the situation? I persisted, but he eventually cut off all communication. Just yesterday, despite feeling safe with the deadbolt locked, I barely slept a wink. I'm contemplating changing the locks myself, but I'm unsure how to do so without causing significant damage. I've missed all my classes today, too afraid to leave my room. As I write this, I'm bracing myself for a potential confrontation. If they access my laptop, they likely know my class schedule. I'm considering hiding and ambushing them if they attempt to enter while I'm supposed to be away. That's my plan for now. I'll provide an update when I can.